While we sleep, the guardians of the night take to the streets, having said goodbye to those they love. Each other knowing they may never say these words again, they face the evil that we run from. They dedicate their lives to those that would hate them because they wear the badge. They wear the badge not for the glory or recognition, but for the passion to help others. This is the LEO First Podcast. We'll talk to the men and women in law enforcement, those that have retired, those that keep the prisons secure, and anyone who's impacted by law enforcement. We'll peel back the curtain, and you'll get the real stories, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Every law enforcement officer has a story to tell. Get ready to hear from the men and women who put their lives on the line every day for their communities and their country. Welcome to the LEO First Podcast. Now, here's your host, Michael Laidler.
A lot of it deals with mental health, being strong, recognizing obstacles, recognizing failures, using resilience because you face a lot of things. One thing that stood out, and I pulled it as soon as you said it, you just said it less than a minute ago, is you talked about creating a family environment for the new officers that come in, and you don't expect nothing to return. However, you want them to see that there's a family and there's more out there for you, because so many times, whether you're working 8 hours, 10 hours, 12-hour shifts, you get caught and lost in the job. But the other side that you're taking, and I think it does, and it will help suicide rates, it helps depression, it helps people feeling lonely, is taking your people out, like, or anybody out, just to go have a meal with you. Like, I don't want nothing in return. I just want to show you that, hey, I eat food and I like to be around people. So obviously, I'm guessing you may have not done that right in the beginning when you first started law enforcement, but as you started to implement that, how did you see the changes in the officers that you were dealing with, or the deputies you deal with? Like, how did you see the change in them?
So when I first got out in this rural area, I started when I retired from Haltom City, came out of here. And I'll be honest with you, Michael, I had retired from Haltom City. I thought I was done with law enforcement. I've done my time. I did my military, and I'd gotten into the private sector and into the training element. And we were training law enforcement from basic SWAT all the way to advanced. And I don't advertise a lot on LinkedIn, but I've got a 30,000 square foot facility here where we live, where we do a lot of training on the side that has nothing to do with my law enforcement. It's completely on the side. And it got a range here to do different things. But when I got out here as the patrol sergeant for the county seat here, I didn't do that. I didn't take them out to dinner. I was trying to figure out the differences between a large municipality that's wedged between Dallas and Fort Worth to a rural part to where you may have a cow running across Main Street in the city, and for me to kind of digest that was a little bit different. And I'm going to tell you what my training. Of course, we do the state minimum training. When I came to Jacksboro city here, chief basically said, "You've done your minimum training. It's a small city. Here's your key. There's your car. Let's figure out the city limits and bring your leadership skills to date and go." So I would meet a few officers at different shift change. I'd stay after just to kind of put a face with the name, because I was grading reports and looking at different things, kind of thrown into the supervisor limelight real quick. And I noticed in passing, I'd only be speaking to these guys for 3 to 4 minutes. They were trying to figure me out. I was trying to figure them out. All they heard was I came from a large agency, and that kind of not scared them, but made them uncomfortable because they were used to a rural setting. And that's completely normal. And I was nervous and scared because I'm coming to a rural setting that I've never been in, and I didn't know what to expect. So what I started doing, Michael, was to, I won't say his name, but we had a new guy that got hired on like I did. He got hired as an officer, an entry officer, and I got hired as a sergeant in the same week. And he was just getting into law enforcement. He's my age. and he owns a successful PR company up in Wichita Falls. And he's like, you know what? And he was in the Marines at the same time I was. Different job, different. He was on West Coast. I was East Coast. And he decided to get in law enforcement only because his daughter was sexually trafficked 2 years prior. Oof. And he couldn't get the agency where he lived, which is not where we're at, to get involved to help catch her. And what he did was, since he's an IT computer genius, is he started tracking different things, and he found his daughter down in Miami, Florida. And he went down there and basically, I mean, there's not named, the movie's not after him, but the movie Taken. He essentially did, without the movie theatrics, obviously, and went and got his daughter back, and then got Miami-Dade or a rural or a adjoining agency down there to help him when she was found. And then when he got back, he was so frustrated with his agency, and he already had leadership from the Marine Corps running a company. Somebody, I think, made a comment to him, hey, if you think you can do it better, why don't you go to the academy? And that's exactly what he did. And now he's a supervisor in the county seat here. So at the municipality here. So he did that. But what I'm going at is, he was brand new. I was brand new to the agency. Eventually I said, hey, Devil Dog, and Marine guys kind of refer to each other's that, let's go grab some dinner. Call your wife up. I'll call mine. Let's go meet at Casa Grande, which is a little Mexican restaurant down in the square. Let's go break some bread together. And we did. And that kind of, that changed our relationship in a, hey, you wear the same pants as I do. We got to hear some of our experiences, and you could see the change in him, because I was training him to be a law enforcement officer with my experience. And then he was bringing in his life experiences when he was on a domestic from life, not so much what he learned in the academy, but from what I was been teaching him and what he's already learned in life and common sense. And he was able to dial down a scene pretty quick. So it was pretty neat to see that. And we were able to kind of put the pieces together, breaking bread from time to time, 2 to 3 times a week on dinner, because we were both on midnights. And it was kind of nice to do that. So really, really neat to do that.
So it's cool. Like it's like activities like that we undervalue, but they hold so many keys that it's just breaking bread with somebody, going out to eat, whether it's on duty, off duty, whatever. That's how you form those relationships. That's how you help people, because hopefully when they are going through something tough, they can be like, you know what, Banning took me out for lunch. You know, I met his family. He's been through some things himself. He told us some stories about things that he had to overcome. And now, as they reflect even on your stories, when they are going through those tough times, they say, you know what, although he's been through all of this, look at how he smiles. He's excited. He called me and said, let's go eat. So I think that's an inspiration. And once again, we get back to telling your story, but finding ways to tell it. You don't have to be on the stage to tell your story. You could be at lunch at Casa Grande and just sit down with a peer, and the impact you have on them, it could be that difference if they're thinking about taking their life or staying. I mean, it could literally be that. But you have to have those opportunities when it comes to mental health. Now, staying on the mental health thing, one thing that I talked about early on in the intro for myself, for you, was social media. Social media isn't navigated well by many law enforcement officers. Like you're definitely the outlier on the higher end of people that do it. And I think that you have a really good following. You have people that react. You have people that comment. How do you think positive social media in law enforcement impacts the mental health of LEOs?
For one, and I can reflect on me. I've gone through a lot of bad calls. 21 years, it doesn't matter what agency you're at, you're going to see a handful
easily,
all the way up to whatever. And I'm going to go back to a deal that a federal agency put out of, in a 20-year career, and I don't remember it exactly. I might be off a little bit on the numbers. Don't quote me on it. An average career law enforcement official of 20 years is going to see in between 700 and 800 critical incidents.
Yes. I heard about that study recently too. Yes.
Right. So 700, 800. So by those numbers, I've supposedly passed that. Okay. Because I'm at 21 plus years. A normal person that's out here working a living for their family from being whatever career, not law enforcement, not first responder, gets in between 1 and 4 critical incidents in their entire life, at a high number being the 4. So we have a lot to digest in law enforcement, and it's finally slowly coming to light on different things. But where I think leadership is kind of lacking on is the debriefing. Anytime you have a priority 1 call, in different parts of the company, or different parts of the country, they're going to call it an AAR, after action report, or a debriefing. I know that resonates with just about every law enforcement agency across the country when you go to something. Up here, when we go to domestic or shooting or something like that, shift goes on. Right. In 2023, the shift goes on. Nobody comes in. Nobody does. So I started doing it. So I'll take my guys. And that's no fault of the people above me.
Yeah,
that's the training they've received in the past. It's not their fault.
Correct.
But I've been taught, when you go through something like that, you need to talk about it afterwards. Not only are you talking about to find out how your guys and gals are that responded, but you're also finding out, did we do everything correctly? Did we? And this is your time to talk. And it's 2023. So if you have an issue with what you went through, you need to talk about it now. But if you don't want to talk to this group, here's 20 different phone numbers you can call, and you can do it anonymously because our department backs you. That's where it needs to be. And less than 30% of the departments across the country are doing it like that right now. There are some amazing departments out there.
It is.
So don't get me wrong on this, that are properly doing debriefing. They're taking care of their guys. If somebody gets hurt, they're creating certain jobs within their agencies to make sure that they stay hired on and they're taking care of them. But there is a huge number of officers across this country that are no longer employed. The only egregious act that they did, Michael, is answer that 911 call. And they went there and they did what they were taught, and they were injured. They've done something. Matter of fact, one of the deputies I work with, and I want you to Google his name. His name is Houston Gass. About 7 years ago, he was up in the Panhandle. He was shot point blank in his face with a 12-gauge shotgun on a family violence call. And he's still putting the uniform on after friggin' 25, 30 surgeries. This dude's still throwing on a uniform. And he's been a police chief up in Pampa, Texas. He was an officer somewhere else. He came down here to Jacksboro and was a sergeant, and now he works with me. He's a deputy where I'm working at now. And to me, you look at him and he's freaking RoboCop, because with all the crap that's going on, you can't really tell because he's grown his beard in like I have. But if you just Google Houston Gass and look up Google Images, he's open with his story. He tells his story out there. And but what I'm saying is his agency was right there with him in the hospital, supporting for a couple months. Then it was, man, now we got to buy this dude $200,000 worth of teeth. We've got to do this. We got to do that. And Michael, eventually they cut him loose. Even the guys that went to the call with him, from what I'm being told, they don't even really communicate with him anymore. Wow. It was basically, and that happens all across this country.
It does.
Administration will turn their back on people that get hurt, and they didn't do anything wrong. They didn't make the organization look bad. They just had high medical bills, and now they're going to be needing medical for this and this and this, and all they were doing was serving the people. And so that's a huge topic to me. And as my LinkedIn grows and doing different things, I plan on speaking more nationally on it. I've actually spoke to some Congress members about it, and got some meetings coming up and other podcasts and stuff that are going to illustrate that. But it's a huge issue, and I can't believe in this day and age that we're still having to deal with something like that. And I'm going to speak about this because I am a disabled vet on paper. I call it an enabled vet. As a vet or disabled vet, I've got over 300 organizations I can reach out to for mental health across the United States. And no questions asked. I show my release papers, my DD-214, and everything is covered. And I can go on a cruise I can go amazing things. Okay, for vets, I'm talking. There's 300 501c3s across this country that will cater to somebody like me.
Correct.
And I did have some injuries in the military, and that's awesome for the guys that did that. My buddies and stuff. I got buddies missing legs and arms, and dude, those agencies are great. But when you look at a guy like me now, if I was not a vet and I get injured here at work or something goes on and I need help and mental health is kind of sparked up in my brain and something's not ticking right up here, and I reach out for help, and other people, and I'm not saying my organization, I'm just saying law enforcement in general, other people within the organization hear that, a big red flag and a target on your back gets highlighted real quick. And that is disgusting. If you guys are the ones that are highlighting or doing like that to your coworkers, shame on you. You don't need to be a police officer anymore. For the ones that are reaching out and helping, like my friend Houston Gas, and I got another friend out in Las Vegas that does Randy Sutton with what's it? You know his organization, right? Randy Sutton's.
Yeah, I want to say that name popped up to me recently. I can't remember where.
I remember now. It's the Wounded Blue, and Randy created this nonprofit years ago, and I have a nonprofit as well. Not so much for mental health. It's for training, but we still cater to the mental health and do amazing events every year. But Randy Sutton's even came out to our event, and we've had Kyle Reyes come out, which is another great guy. Kyle Reyes is now the owner of Law Enforcement Today. He's the one that just purchased it. But those are two guys that will, if you reached out to them as a cop, they're going to pop open their Rolodex and they're going to find somebody to give you a hand, myself included. If somebody reached out to me, and which they have 2 to 3 times a week since I've gotten some numbers built up. But there are some amazing organizations out there. They're just not getting enough coverage, and they're not being distributed to these law enforcement agencies to show that they're there. But my problem is if you're at a large municipality and you reach out for mental health, and I'm not saying all of them, but I'm saying a majority of them, you're going to get the lowest bidded company. And it may be a great company, but keep in mind, they got to do bids to find out which ones they can afford for the amount of officers that they have. And to me, Mike, that's just sad. When it comes to mental health, that is our main engine in life. If we don't keep this thing ticking right, it's lights out for some of these guys. And I personally know too many of them that have ended their life. As a matter of fact, one of my own deputies about 1.5 years ago did it here, and it absolutely broke me because I just got done training him. And his was a quick training because he was a law enforcement officer from another agency down in the Metroplex. And when I got the phone call that day from my boss, it hit close to home because I've had the talk with him, and I know how many lives that I have changed from the letters and everything. But when I had one that close to me, thought that it was whatever was going on that bad in his life, that he had to do a permanent solution to a temporary problem. It hurts deep in our hearts in law enforcement for sure.
Yeah, and it's crazy, and it does hurt even more when that's something you talk about, and that's something you promote, and like you said, even in LinkedIn, your one of your prime platforms. Even it happened 18 months ago. Obviously, you've been doing your thing a lot longer than that. So it's I think as leaders, as people that support mental health, it's always uphill battle, no matter how you look at it. But you have to continue to still do it because you're going to have those obstacles. Once again, I mean, you could have easily took that situation and said, you know what, if I can't even protect the people around me, how am I going to protect anybody else? But you can't take that approach because you can offer the best information and you still don't know how that person's brain processes it. However, you still got to deliver it no matter what, because that one life that you did lose, how many other ones did you save based on the material, the content, the information you have put out? Dude, I mean, and through social media alone. And like I said, what I've seen with your page, and I really love to just like the Washington View, is that you're giving these positive, motivational stints of information that people don't know about. And while you and I have taken more time and dove into it, it's still people out there that have no clue. I remember I was talking to a correctional officer about 6 months ago, and I know when she came through my training program 1.5 years prior to that, we talked about EAP, which is Employee Assistance Program. And it was actually kind of funny because I thought she was somebody, because at the time I had already trained probably about 70 people within the last year or two. So I thought she was somebody else based on they had similar last names. And I was asking her about an incident. And I was like, hey, how are you feeling after that? And she started saying, you know what? I've been feeling down and I don't like, this isn't great. And I was like, well, have you reached out to EAP? Because to me, she just went through my training program within a short time. And she was like, what is that? And I was like, in my head, I was like, dang. All this we put out, the emails, the psychology staff, the peer unit or the peer support units, the internet, and you still have people that just don't know about it. And it drives me even more. That's why I love shows like this. And I love being on podcasts. I love speaking on mental wellness. I just love speaking to law enforcement in general, because I know there's, no matter how we look at it and whether the funding's there or not, there's never going to be enough of us speaking about it, because there's still going to be that one person that doesn't know or doesn't understand. And they need us out there to teach and instruct them, because life is tough.
Oh yeah. Very much so. And it's, just thinking about that, when I first got into law enforcement, I didn't hear, and I got into law enforcement, 2002. Mental health wasn't a topic.
Not at all.
And we went to just as bad at calls then as we do now, if not worse sometimes. And we'd go to a bad call and we'd come back to the agency and type up our paper and go home at the end of the night. And they always told us in the academy, keep your work at work, keep your home at home, and everything's gravy. But I got to the point to where I was coming home and I'm like thinking about several calls that week I've been on, from death to dismemberment to bad everything. Car wrecks and you start categorizing stuff in your head and you're like, I didn't see any of this stuff in the military. And here I am in the state of Texas, and it's happening in my backyard. I'm living in the city that this stuff is going on. And then you start getting guarded. And it got to the point, Michael, and I'm not afraid to say it. I've said it before. I went to a large mall. As a matter of fact, it was Grapevine Mills Mall back in 2005, 2006, eons ago. And I'm in the mall, and we went into the food court. They've got a really big food court there. And I remember going in, and I thought, man, I don't have to go back to work for 4 days. This is great. We're going to go to Chili's, and I'm going to enjoy a beer. I don't get to drink. I'm just going to enjoy a beer. At the time, my wife was driving, and cool. I'll have a beer and enjoy some chips and go home. And Michael, we were sitting there, and the way this Chili's is, it's not like your normal restaurant, because it's in a mall. So it has a whole bunch of these open seats kind of in the middle of the mall there. And anyway, you get to see everybody walking by you and everything. And at this one, about halfway through the beer, for whatever reason, I had blinders come on like I was in a pursuit. And I felt like everybody was looking at me. Everybody knew that I was on a call at their house or I've done something. Somebody in that mall was after me. They knew that I arrested a loved one, or that guy was getting out of jail and he was going to come. It literally came raining down on me. And I'm sitting there, and my wife was shopping or something. She came back, sat down with me, and we had already eaten. So I was just enjoying a beer. And she started talking, Michael, and I was looking at her and I couldn't hear anything. I'm looking at her mouth opening up and down, and I couldn't hear the words because I was so in tune to try to hear everything around me. And it's the mall, so it's echoey.
Yeah, it's everything.
And I'm looking at her, and she finally said, did you hear what I was saying? She kind of got frustrated, and I would have got frustrated too. You're talking to a loved one sitting in front of you, and they're not even acknowledging you.
Correct.
And I said, we got to go. She said, what do you mean? I said, I got to go. And we were supposed to be up there meeting another couple, and we were going to have dinner later on. And I said, I got to go home. And it got to the point to where she, of course, drove us home. And I went in the bedroom, and I shut the door, turned the box fan on. Been sleeping with a box fan for 25 years, most of my life. And to drown things out, because you hear things from previous calls, you dream about things. I've never been taught this. I've just learned from process of elimination. If you have a fan on in your room, you don't hear it as much. So I eventually I reached out for help. I'm like, is this normal? What is it? And then I heard the terminology, which I didn't think existed outside the Marine Corps, was PTSD. I'm like, I'm just a cop in America. How is this PTSD?
Correct.
And then they kind of broke it down to me, and that was the best thing I could have ever went and did. And it was a month and a half of talking to this young man that taught me how to unpack everything, to lay it out on the table, and realize it's normal that everything that I've gone through, and it's normal to talk about it. And by golly, if you don't do it, somebody else may not, and those people may not have help. And it doesn't make it okay or normalize it, but it helps you unpack it and talk about it. And that's why I'm so big into the mental health thing, because even some of my FTOs that I've had in the past, they were the quiet type. They were do as I say, don't do as I do, old school.
Yeah.
Not bad, just the way they were taught.
Yeah, that's their style.
Yeah, and they're out of law enforcement now, and I'm half tempted to go by and knock on their door and be like, "How's life?" Because they never spoke. They didn't, we'd go out to eat, them being my FTO, and they're sitting there just eating, doing the death stare in the corner. And I'm like, "So did I do okay on that call?" And he'd say, "Did I say anything to you during the call?"
Yeah, I've heard that one before.
Are you serious, dude? You can talk to me. I'm not gonna. I'm just a rookie. Just let me know. I want some self-criticism. It'll be in your DOR, your daily observation report. Then at the end of the day, I look at that and I'm like, man, this dude could have told me this at lunch. He thought I was horrible at it, but that's just the way they were taught.
Correct. Communication styles are different.
You bet. And so my goal in life is to humanize the badge in a sense of not only to our community, but within the walls of the law enforcement agencies. So if you're gifted or honored to be offered a FTO position or a leadership position in your agency, make sure you're communicating. I don't care if you're going to briefings, if you're stopping, if you're a lieutenant or a captain and you're riding a desk, throw that friggin' uniform on if you're chief or your powers will be allow you to, and re-expose yourself. Go out, check on your guys. Go out and take a paper call. Go take a report every once in a while.
Yep.
Run a plate and get a regional warrant on somebody and actually make a traffic stop. Keep yourself invested on why you got started in law enforcement to begin with, so you don't lose your edge. And you will have a hell of a lot more respect from the guys that are underneath you. And that's the only place you should be looking for respect when you're an administrator. Yes, you have to answer to the citizens. I get that. But you've got to take care of your workforce to make sure that they're taking care of your citizens.
Lead by example. And I think that is that. And I was doing a podcast earlier, and that's something that myself and the other podcast guests she brought it up, was being out there on the ground. Because not saying you always have time to do it. I mean, it's you have to go home at some point. You have to spend time with your family, but find time somewhere in your schedule just to show your face out there and say, you know what, I can do a traffic stop still. I may have not done one in a while. I don't do them consistently, but I know how to run a tag. I know how to go. I know how to go intervene on a domestic call. I know how to at least start the traffic crash. I may not do the whole report, but at least I'll go there and separate parties and get the story for you at least. But all that counts. And I think all that does play an impact in mental health. So your book, you talked about you're in the process of writing it. What is driving you to write it at this point?
The messages that I've gotten on social media has been the biggest driving factor. And also in the past 20 plus years in law enforcement, I've been to 24 calls of kids acting out. And the crux or the reason they're doing it is they were adopted at birth is why they were breaking the law. They were adopted at birth. Why they were doing this? They were adopted. No, by God, that's why I acted like that. So when I'm home, it does. So when I'm lucky enough to get dispatched that call or to go do a follow up on a call like that, I have a lot of ammunition inside my heart and inside my mind to where I can take this young man, young woman, take him to the side, and have a true and I'm not shoving religion down people's throats. So don't, I call them come to Jesus meetings. Yeah. Basically guess what? We're walking the same path, but I'm walking here and you're walking over here. and you're about to see a set of these handcuffs, and your life's going to really change. But right now, you've got some options to make. And I'm going to tell you my life, and I'll sit there, and it'll take me an hour, and I will give them a 30,000-foot view of Banning Sweatland's life, of the woes, the goods, the bads, the uglies, and where it started at, where I'm at now, and if I can do it, you can do it type of speech. And what's really cool, Michael, is when I created my LinkedIn, I got up to about 150 connections. I hate to say followers. I don't like that term.
Yeah, it's connections. Yeah.
I had 150 connections, and I thought I was on top of the world, man. I could reach out to these guys and gals and professional networks, and they could message me back. And this thing was 20 million times better than Facebook to me. And I could see these amazing leadership articles and go through this. And I literally shut my Facebook down for 10 years. I just reopened it just to kind of see how family was doing. Right. Because, everybody needs to know when somebody goes to the gym or is constipated, because that's what Facebook's all about. But on the LinkedIn side, I had a gentleman reach out to me. And I didn't recognize the name. And he just said, "Hey, I just want to thank you for the conversation we had 10 years ago." And I'm just thinking, oh crap. Did I arrest him? Let me look at this. Let me look at this guy's profile, because it was just a clean-cut young man profile with red shirt, So I clicked on the profile and I scrolled down. I said, the Texas Department of Public Safety, trooper, 2 years. And then before that, it was Haltom High School. And I'm like, nice. So I'm sitting here thinking about it. And then I told him, I said, dude, here's my phone. And I'm careful with my number that I give out on social media now more than ever. But I said, here's my number. If you got a minute, call me. Because I know I remember your face. I just can't remember the conversation. And I just want to know if it was a good one. So he called me, and this was 2 years ago. He called me, and he goes, do you really not remember? And I said, I'll be honest with you, man, I got a pretty good memory, but I have had a lot of conversation in the past 10 years. People. Yeah. And he said, basically, he goes, you came to my house. He goes, I believe it was titled A Family Disturbance. And the kid was pushing mom, and he goes, I'm the kid. And that was, I couldn't believe it, because I sat him down. I carved out a path with him, and we spoke for several months. It was through email. So I only got to see his face that one time as a senior in high school. But he went on, and he went on and got an associate's degree after our conversation. He actually straightened up pretty immediately, because I followed up with mom and dad a couple times on the phone. Now, I lost contact with the family once he went to community college. But whatever I said in the follow-ups, it resonated so well to him. And I'm not saying I'm the reason. I'm just an extra hurdle removed in his life to maybe help him get over some things. But now he's a trooper in Texas, and that's freaking awesome, man. It's a good feeling. And that he decided to turn his life around.
And that's the kind of thing that I love for people to talk about in their stories and write books on. You don't have to retire to write a book. You can be in the moment of your career, and you can share these stories, because this is what people want to hear. Like you said, when you talked to him when he was doing his thing as a kid, you didn't think that your motivational or your just following up was going to lead to him eventually getting into law enforcement. But you knew that at least giving him information, he could hopefully take a path of success, and he could become the greatest form of who he needs to be. So that's kind of what your book will be offering. It's going to be you're sharing your story and things you've gone through with the anticipation that it's going to motivate people, inspire them, get them on a track that they can hopefully lead successful lives.
Sure. Absolutely. And it's and one other, and I'll just give you another story. So, you know as well as I do, the job, it never truly makes you numb. I hear a lot of guys saying, "Oh, I'm numb now. I've been doing this for 10 years. I can go to any call and it doesn't bother me." Yeah. Well, I know that they're so far in the fruit bowl that they're shutting it out right then, but there's going to be an explosion point.
Yeah. I agree.
But I know this because I was there. It was before I got some help. So let's go back to, gosh, 2002, right into law enforcement, got out, came out like a 44 Magnum, man. I'm just firing left and right. No, not real rounds for those that are listening, just meaning the calls that I'm getting. I'm
A lot of
writing
us do.
Yes, I'm writing dozens of reports. I'm making a lot of arrests. I'm starting canine. I'm doing different things. And my fiance at the time, I'm no longer married to her anymore, but we had two beautiful children. But when it came to that time to where my job as a future husband had to find somebody to perform the vows and everything for us, I thought, man, I've got a pretty awesome fire department chaplain that I really get along, and his name's Steve. This is when I was at Haltom City, and I'd swing by his church. He wasn't there. I was on midnight, so it was really hard to communicate with people. When you're on the dark side.
Oh yeah, everybody else sleep. Yes.
Yeah. So, and like I said, I knew he'd be at his church sometimes at night. But sometimes I'd see his truck there because he'd be writing his sermon for Sunday.
Yeah.
And I'd go knocking on the door, and he's either too deep in it or maybe he was sleeping in the church. I have no idea, even to this day. He's a darn good pastor. But finally, and I hate to say it like this, 'cause he wrote a book and I'm in the book. As a matter of fact, from a long time ago. I heard it was toned out. We had a train pedestrian accident, and those are, use your imagination, think of the worst train accident movie, and that's what I'm driving to. Now, I'm not driving there to work this because at that time it was early enough in the day to where our motors were there, our CID, Criminal Investigation Division, was there, all patrol was available. So we had it covered. Meaning guys that were going to work it. So I was still just an available, what's called a rover unit. And I was in canine at the time.
Yeah.
But then I heard them say that Chaplain Steve Van Zant's going to be there. And I know he won't mind me using his name because I stuff for his book. I knew he was going. So, and keep in mind, he's a volunteer fireman.
Correct.
Been a chaplain for a long time in our city, but I knew he was going to be there. And I had to get that question because my fiance at the time said, I need an answer from him. Otherwise, we're going to have to get in the yellow pages and find somebody to do this because the date was approaching. So I get up there and I'm walking through the crime scene without disturbing anything. It wasn't messing up the crime scene.
Yeah.
But I got up to the portion of where Steve was at, and he's motionless. He's leaning against the train. He's talking to one of the detectives. And when I get up to him, I'm a very young, wet behind the ears police officer. And I had one track. I was given an instruction. I had to go ask him if I saw him. And that was for my fiance. And if you're half asked you to do something, you're going to go do it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. No matter what.
I straddle what's in front of me, and I'm not disturbing it, but it's a torso. I reach over, I shake his hand. Hey, Steve, how are you doing? He's gray. I mean, this is a bad scene, but I'm on a mission. So I'm able to box this thing out completely and go ask Steve. And I was like, hey, I know this is a bad time, so I'll make this really quick. My fiance and I are looking to get married on this date, and I was hoping to tell her that you would be able to do it. And he just looked at me and he goes, Banning, are you asking me to be a part of your wedding at a train pedestrian accident? I guess that is what it is, but I haven't heard you on the radio in a while. And I just wanted to come up and ask you that. Yeah. And he just looked at me, he shook his head, he goes, Banning, absolutely. Anybody that's going to come trouncing through all this and not be bothered at all by it, you bet I'll be there. I said, thank you, sir. I got a call to go to. And I went back to my car and left. And it didn't dawn on me till about 5 years later. And it just like, I was on patrol and it just dawned on me. I'm like, and I called him and I said, Steve, I just want to apologize. And he said, stop right there. He's like, you don't need to apologize for me or anything. And we'd become pretty good friends at the time. And I said, man, I came and asked you during a crime scene when you were about to speak to a family member of the deceased, if you would do it, because it didn't even dawn on me at the wedding. He's there and we're doing our thing. And he's telling his story to my family members. And I didn't even know about it till years later. Anyway, just that right there shows you how easy you can compartmentalize something, but it will dump out on you later on in life. I don't care how strong you are, how physically big you are, how much crap you've gone through personally. If you don't sit there and properly ventilate the stuff that's going on in your life as a human being, you will implode or explode, one of the two. And neither one of them are good.
Yeah, none of them are going to benefit you. And that's another reason why it's good to talk about your story early and often. You get it out there. And I think you do a great job on the social media side and adding that layer of now having a book. I think that's going to be two things that will not just benefit people out there, but benefit you as well, because you know what's happening in your life. You're very aware, and that goes a far way in law enforcement, because we start looking at all the things we've been through, all the stories, and 700 to 800 critical incident traumas. There's a story out there for each person. And it's, I think, just hearing it, just all the different walks of life, all the different avenues that you've been through. And I know we can't touch on all of them, because if so, we'd be here for at least probably 10 hours. But it's important to know that even the ones that we talked about on this show, how relatable they are, because people go through things. And I remember not too long ago, someone asked me, well, what story do I have to share? I said, share yours. Like, you don't have to be the Simon Sinek's of the world, or you don't have to be something extremely bad technically in your eyes. Something bad happened to you to where you lost a loved one. Just tell what's going on with you, because all of us has been shaped by something. And I think you're doing a great job with it. I mean, between social media and now your book, I think all of it's good. So when people are thinking about, obviously, LinkedIn is probably the best way, but if you had to promote two other ways people can reach you on top of LinkedIn, what do you think it would be? I know it's not going to be Facebook, because you just that's more for family, but like, what else do you look at? Do you have a website up now? Are you doing?
No, I'm actually creating a website.
Okay.
I had a friend of mine park it for me, but it's not live yet. It's under construction, but I believe what he said it's going to be. It's just banningsweatland.com. But if people want to truly reach out to me, it's kind of a long email. I get in between 1,500 and 2,500 messages a day on LinkedIn. So I know people get frustrated when it's a few days for me to get back to them. And I don't mind giving this out, but it's just B Sweatland. So BSWEATLAND 1240 at gmail.com. That comes directly to my phone. If it's, and I would want them to put in the subject field the quick 30,000 foot view of what the message is going to be about, so I can, because I'm going to let you guys, your listeners know, even on my email, I get kind of some SOSs from guys and gals across this country, right, and some even over in England, Canada, Italy. I mean, these guys need some mental help, and I want to be able to help those guys first. If you want to send me, thank you for the stuff on LinkedIn, I read every single one of these messages, and eventually I get back to every single one of them. LinkedIn's going to be your best platform for that. If you're trying to come to me for you're wanting me to look at a product or service for law enforcement, email is probably going to be the best way. I'll be able to get back to you a little bit faster. If you're wanting to find out stuff about what mental health is available in your area, that's also email. And if you got a true problem, eventually through our conversation, I'm going to give you a phone number to call so we can talk about it, so I can get the answer to your question to you a lot faster. So email and LinkedIn, and yes, Facebook. Now, I've been told, even by a guy at security at Facebook, that I get a lot of fake Facebooks created that has my LinkedIn material on it. That's not me. You're gonna know mine. I'm never gonna change the profile, at least for now. But it's this ugly mug with my little bobblehead sitting in a car. I can't remember if I got a cowboy hat on. I think it's just a regular hat. But I'm just sitting there smiling, looking at it, and it's got my bobblehead. It's that. But you can also reach out to me through, I'm a board member for the National Law Enforcement Officer Hall of Fame, which is going to be held in Fort Worth, Texas, this coming March 22nd. Good friend of mine, I believe he's going to come. I'm not sure yet. He has an RSVP, but He's usually the main MC is Sheriff Mark Lamb out of Arizona. I believe we're going to have Bill Wayburn this year. He's Tarrant County Sheriff, another great sheriff. Mark Lamb's wife and I sit on that board. Her name is Janelle Lamb. Mark is just a great sheriff. I look up to him. And you and I meant to bring him up earlier, but you and I talked about what our agencies need to better things and for our leaders to get back out there in the field and do stuff. If you look at things on Facebook and YouTube called Fridays with Frank, that's Frank Slope. He's a good friend of mine. And then if you look at Mark Lamb, he's in a lot of those episodes. Mark gets his rear end up out of his seat. He goes out. He goes to calls with his guys. He's in a large county in Arizona, and he's got a lot of deputies. But he can be seen out in the field just as much as the chief deputy, the supervisors. And that speaks volumes to me because I know a lot of the deputies there, and that resonates very well with them.
Yeah.
And he also echoes mental health, and he makes sure his guys and gals get taken care of. So if you're a new sheriff or a new chief across this country, regardless of your political affiliations, look at Mark Lamb as a leader. If you want to mirror yourself off of somebody that truly takes care of his citizens that elected him and put him in office, and he truly takes care of the element that works underneath him, or I should say side by side with him.
And that sounds like he's passionate about people, which
he truly
as
is.
the CEO of a law enforcement agency, for your people to follow, you have to have that passion. You have to have that driving force that, hey, I'm going to make time to be out there. Now, you can't be out there all the time. We already discussed that already, but just showing some effort and getting out there, it allows the troops on the ground to kind of see that this is you're just not there as a figure. Like you're just not there as a person that just speaks on the media, which you're going to do that anyways. But on the other side, when you're not doing that, and you have to build some time, you have to let your secretary know, hey, I'm going to go out to the field. If you need me, just call me from there. But on the reaching out side, I will tell the viewers that you're right. Because I remember one of our first 1 or 2 LinkedIn messages, you actually sent me a message back saying like, hey, man, I get way too many LinkedIn messages. Can you send me an email? And as soon as I emailed you, it was like game on. It was like rapid fire. So for those that may have reached out to Banning before or try to reach out to him in the future, LinkedIn isn't bad, but if he doesn't respond right away, it's because of the influx of messages. And as you become more popular and more seen on LinkedIn, you're going to get those bots reaching out to you. You're going to get people. So think about it, guys. Think about your full-time job right now. And now think about, remember, Banning does this in addition to being a great sergeant up there. So he's filtering or trying to go through all these messages. So he's telling you, if you're trying to reach and it's very important to you, send him an email, put something in the subject so he can make sure it's not another fake email or fake person. And that'll be a way that he can see it even quicker. So I think that for those that are looking and I'm sure people are going to listen to this because your following is that strong. And they're probably wondering, well, I messaged him last week. He never message. Well, email, guys. That's the strongest thing. And soon he'll have his book and he'll have his website. So you guys will have other forms to reach him. So I want to wrap up, and I will tell you, Manny, you're the second person on these shows that I'm going to create a 2-hour segment for. The other person I did is a chief out of Albany, Georgia, Mike Persley. We went so long that I didn't want people just to hear 1 hour of it. So I split his up, and I'm going to do the same with yours because I loved our conversation. And I feel for people that if they try to listen to it for 2 hours, they're not going to listen to the whole thing. And I want to spread it out. And I think the anticipation as well will make them want to come back for the second hour. So I do appreciate how much you have spent with me tonight. And definitely, I know the viewers, you're following especially, are going to appreciate hearing you on another platform and just talking about how much you believe in them. So any final words you would like to share with my audience and yours on this show?
A big thank you for the push that, and many of you that looked at my connections. Again, I hate to say followers. I wish LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter and Instagram, all those. I wish they would remove the term followers, because we're all. I mean, I'm not a king sitting on a hill. I'm a guy in a normal house, and I work maybe closer to an 80-hour job a week right now, but I'm normal. And I get these messages from young folks across the country. You're amazing. No, I'm not. I'm normal. The only thing that I do is I kick on this camera. The same one I'm using right now to speak with you, Mike, is the one I use for LinkedIn. It's just an iPhone. And all I'm doing is I'm talking to the camera. I'm speaking my emotion, my mind, in hopes to reach somebody out there, not necessarily first responders, because if you look at my connections, it's a melting pot. It's security guards to attorneys to paralegals to maintenance guys to it's the entire workforce.
Mm-hmm.
And the entire workforce has sent me emails on something that's either touched them or a story in their life, and I don't forget them. And yes, I do get back to each individual real message.
Yes.
Once I put it through a filter, and I get back to now, the time is, so my message to them is, if you sent me a message and I haven't gotten back to you yet, bear with me. I promise I'll get to you. I don't have staff doing my LinkedIn. It's me. I will get back to you as soon as possible, but a faster message would be through Gmail. And Michael, all the way up, you and I have been talking now for quite some time, and I'm looking at the podcast you've been putting out and also the leadership you've been doing on YouTube. And I want to congratulate you on that, dude. You're going on a slope that's going up, and I want you to keep pushing. And I hope once I put this out on my platforms that many more people start reaching out to you for that, for either keynote or leadership. And I'll end it at that right there.
And I appreciate that, because at the end of the day, we're all together on this. No matter, it's sad because I see it and I experience it. I know, Banning, you're in the same boat, but we don't need to compete with each other for any of these speaking engagements, these training classes. We don't need to try to downplay others, because trust me, I know speakers that do this full time. They do speak 60 to 70 times a year, and it's still not enough. I mean, it's not enough. And if I speak at one location this year, I don't care. I don't care if I had everybody crying. I don't care if I sold 1,000 books. They're not bringing me back next year. It's just the name of the game, because that's not going to be impactful to their audience. So if you go speak somewhere and someone says, "Hey, where have you spoken at?" Be honest. "Oh, I spoken here." They hire speakers, or share it, because some of my speaking gigs that I've gotten now, and it's increasing as I build momentum through the podcast, YouTube, and just speaking, it's coming through referrals, because people cannot, like I said, it doesn't matter how good you are. You're just not going to speak back to back. You may MC, but you're not going to be that keynote 2 years in a row. And you're going to be probably a keynote for that association again, but usually about 3 to 4 years, because they've had some turnover and they want you to address it. So when it comes to what we're doing, I think it's very important that we know as leaders that we got to be out there networking with each other, pushing each other's agenda, especially when it comes to mental wellness and leadership, because there's never enough. If there was enough, we wouldn't have these daunting numbers of suicide. If there was enough, we wouldn't have people just quitting the field and going to jobs that have no calling as much as law enforcement. So we need to continue to promote these messages.
Right. No, I'm right there with you. And if I could just throw one more plug in there, and that is the National Law Enforcement Hall of Fame. Megan Stockberger and Adam Davenport are the founders. They're on LinkedIn. They're on Facebook. Find them, connect with them. They're not in law enforcement. Megan's father was a Toledo police officer, just retired recently. When I'm with them, I'm with my extended family. They're a great people. And I want every one of these listeners on your side of the house and on mine, and all of them combined, to go to the National Law Enforcement Officer Hall of Fame website and see what we're all about. When I say we, I'm just blessed for them to pull me towards them, for me to get the word out for what they're doing. They've done so much of this out of their own pocket. They're bringing it to the Omni in downtown Fort Worth, like I said, next year, March 22nd. Anybody and everybody can buy a table to come see. You're going to see extraordinary police officers from around the country come and get inducted into the Hall of Fame. And to hear some of these stories, Michael, I make myself out to be a decent police officer, law enforcement officer, but the ones that they're inducting, amazing. I mean, Cheryl McCullum, I'm just going to say her name real quick. So she has an Emmy for her role in the CSI work that she does in Atlanta, Georgia. She's been on Nancy Gray. Is that her name? Or what's her, the media figure?
Nancy Grace.
Nancy Grace. I'm thinking of Nancy Gray on LinkedIn. She's also a great person. Nancy Grace on LinkedIn has brought her onto the show several times. Nancy's brought up the Hall of Fame. But if people, corporations, businesses, individuals would donate, even just a small, what it does is it helps us get the heroes to where they're going, helps pay for their plaque. It helps put on like this, this venue that we're going to this year is, we're looking at $60,000 just for the ballroom hallway to honor these people at the Omni Hotel. So it's a lot of money, and we every year we've got to get donations, try to go out and make money, and nobody's pulling a check out of this. This is all to put on for the heroes. So it's my stamp of approval, 100% what they're doing. That's why I accepted a position on their board. That's why Mark Lamb is involved, Janelle Lamb, my buddy Chris with this hat here, Angel Armor. He's involved. He's a salesman for them. He's also on the board. But all around, amazing organization. If you're going to donate to something, that's the one to do it to right there.
So you guys heard it. Mark your calendars, and trust me, this episode will be out before March 22nd. But if you're looking for an amazing event to go to, it's in Fort Worth at the Omni Hotel. It's going to be a great way to support. And we've talked about it for the last 2 hours. For us to grow, for us to succeed in our industry, we have to be supportive of one another, and we have to honor those that are here and those that have fallen, because life is hard. And we're one of the few industries that, I don't want to say we're the only one, but as first responders, we're probably one of the only industries that go through a lot with probably the least amount of benefits. If you're in the military, you're going to get VA benefits, especially if you apply for it. If you're in other industries, you're just not going to deal with as much. So law enforcement deals with it on both sides, but without the resources. So every chance I get to speak to someone like you, Banning, that's involved in different charities and different programs and have different callings that you're pushing out, it's important for me to include, because I want to share the message as well. And I'll make sure that in the show notes that we have all the information in there and allow people to click directly to the website. Now, is the registration link and the sponsor link active already?
They are. Okay. They're all there. If they want to be a sponsor, and then there's different levels, if they just want to come and get a table and come witness this amazing thing, it's all on the website. Okay,
good. Because I just asked, because I know if anybody's like me that's listening, you hear things and you want immediate answers. So they're going to look down, they're going to hear this part of the show and say, okay, where's the link at? And then if they don't find it, they're going to get distracted, because we all do. So I just want to make sure that when I put in the call notes or the show notes, that it's actually in there. So I will have that in there for you guys. So if you have any interest, or even if you're not personally interested, share it. Share it on your social media. Share it in the email. Share it with your colleagues. Just, be at a roll call and say, hey, man, have you guys heard about this event going on in Fort Worth? This would be a good way for us to honor each other and kind of hear about the stories of our fellow brothers and sisters. Just it's one more thing to make us better people.
You bet. And I appreciate it so much. I've got my wife peering into my lair here, holding my work phone in her hand. So something's spinning off. So I'm going to have to, what's called 1098 out of here, so I can go get on the phone.
Okay.
But brother, this has been amazing. Absolutely amazing. I appreciate the invite, like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah, no problem. Guys, you heard it. We're going to let Banning go, because once the work phone turns on, it's game on. He has to go 1098. Yeah. So, guys, thank you for listening. Thank you for being on the show. And make sure, if you guys have any remarks, follow Banning, find his book. It's coming out soon. You guys have a great night.
Appreciate it, brother.
You've been listening to the LEO First Podcast. Michael has been in law enforcement since 2005. He's worked for 3 law enforcement agencies in 3 different states. He's a professional speaker who travels the country teaching about leadership development and self-awareness. And he's the author of a book called Greatness Beyond the Badge: The 3 Key Principles for Self-Awareness. It's Michael's passion to bring law enforcement members' stories to the front, so you get the real and raw take. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review. And we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with Michael on YouTube, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Michael Laidler, on Twitter at Michael A. Laidler, on Facebook at Michael Laidler Leadership. Send an email to michael@michaelalaidler.com and hit the website at michaelalaidler.com. See you next time on the LEO First Podcast.